Buenos dias, estudiantes. This is Mr. Nick. Today we're going to learn how to conjugate irregular verbs. The type of irregular verbs that we're going to conjugate today are the stem tension verbs. So the title of our class for today will be learning to conjugate stem tension verbs. Stem changing verbs. And the EQ for today is how are stem changing verbs similar or different from regular verbs. Make sure you write that down in your notebook. Today's class, you should be taking notes. The good thing is this is in a video and you can watch it several times if you need to, or you can be pausing it in order to be taking notes. All right, so let's talk about verbs real quick. We have, in the world of verbs, let me see if I can put my phones here somewhere. In the world of verbs, we have regular verbs and irregular verbs, two different categories, well, two different types of verbs. And each type of verbs has different categories. You guys know the regular verbs have three categories. There are the AR verbs, the ER verbs, and the IR verbs. You know, regular verbs follow rules, and the rules are, number one, know that they're regular. Number two is take the ending of the infinitive form out, the AR, ER, or IR. And then rule number three is fill in with the appropriate ending depending who's doing the action. Irregular verbs, they all do their own thing. Except that some of them are similar to regular verbs, but they're not exactly the same. The good thing is that stem tension verbs are somewhat similar to regular verbs. Okay, so let's go real quick over the endings of regular AR verbs. In order for you to memorize these endings, we've created in class, back in the past, 19 years ago, we created in class a chant, a song that will help us remember the endings of the AR regular verbs. And the chant goes like this. It's called the ass song, and it goes like this. Oh, ass, amos, an, ice, baby, chun, 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 chun. Then the ending for the ER song, verbs song, is O, S, hemos, n, ace. Ace is the place for the helpful hardware folks. And then the song that we created for the IR regular verbs is O, S, emos, n, is. You is talking to me? Okay, now, Mr. Nick, why are you talking about regular verbs when today's class deals with irregular verbs, the stem changing verbs? Very good question. Well, the thing is that stem changing verbs have the same endings as regular verbs. So that's a very good thing for you, because then you already know these endings, and then you would know what to write down when you're conjugating the verbs. The difference between stem changing verbs and regular verbs is, the name of this category of verbs, stem changing. That means the stem of the verb or the root of the verb changes when you're conjugating the verb. One thing to remember, though, is that it does not change in every personal pronouns. The personal pronouns nosotros and vosotros will remain like regular verbs. The stem will not change in those two. So over here, I have all verbs, and we have the two types of verbs, regular verbs, irregular verbs. We know that for regular verbs, we have three categories, AR, ER, IR. And for irregular verbs, we have a few categories, and they're totally regular. Your form, stem changing verbs, which is what we're going to be learning today, and a combination of yo form and stem changing. Okay? So, remember, they do have the stem changing verbs have the same endings as regular verbs, but the stem changes. And the stem will change in all of these personal pronouns except for nosotros, nosotras, and vosotros, and vosotras. So, yo, tú, él, ella, usted, the stem will change. Ellos, ellas, ustedes, the stem will change. Nosotros and nosotras, the verb is going to be treated as if it's a regular verb. So that's something for you to remember. It's very important that you remember not to change the stem in nosotros, nosotras, vosotros, and vosotras. All right, so over here I have a list of some stem changing verbs. Now these are not all, and these are not all the different ways that the stem could change. There is a couple of more. But for these verbs, tener, which means to have, pensar, which means to think, cerrar, which means to close, querer, which means to want, preferir, which means to prefer, empezar, which means to begin, and entender, which means to understand, the stem will be this, 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 this. Now, in Spanish, we usually count syllables of the words from the end towards the beginning of the word. So from the right to the left. That means this word has 1, 2 syllables, 1, 2 syllables, 1, 2 syllables, 1, 2 syllables, 1, 2, 3 syllables, 1, 2, 3 syllables, 1, 2, 3 syllables. Usually the stem of the verb that's going to change is the second syllable from the right to the left. Okay, so that's going to be helpful for you to remember. So whenever you have a verb that's like a 3-syllable verbs, and you don't know which the stem is, remember this. The stem would usually be the second syllable from right going towards the left. Now, for all these verbs, tener, querer, pensar, cerrar, preferir, empezar, and entender, the stem is with the letter E. They all have the letter E. That E is going to change from E to Y. Okay? From E to Y. For example, pensar, you would not say yo penso, because the stem needs to change from E to Y. You're going to say yo pienso. And that brings me to show you how to conjugate them real quick. It's, to be honest with you, it's something fairly easy since you already know how to conjugate regular verbs. All you need to do is remember what would the stem would change into. It's usually one vowel changes to something different. All right, let me flip my magnetic whiteboard that I bought. Look at this eraser. Huh, isn't that awesome? All right, so here is an example of a stem changing verb. The verb pensar. Pensar means to think, and the stem is pen. The E will change from an E to an Y. In the personal pronouns, yo, tú, él, ella, usted. But it will not change. The stem will stay the same in nosotros, and in nosotras.